Can we use a distribute list for route filtering with OSPF? Yes, we can. However, it is different than with EIGRP. With EIGRP, as we've just explored, we saw that we can control which routes are advertised to neighbors with the distribute list process. However, with OSPF, you have learned something extremely important in your studies, and that is that every single OSPF router inside of an area has to have the exact same what? Link state database. So since they have to have the exact same link state database, you are not able to control. All right, let me repeat that. You are not able to control the routes on an individual by individual basis that are advertised to neighbors. Every router in that area has to have the exact same information. So I can't apply a distribute list in OSPF to filter the 10110 network from being advertised to a neighboring router. It's not possible. So what it does for OSPF is it controls which routes are installed in the routing table from the link state database. So on a router by router basis with the distribute list, you can state that I know about this route in my link state database, but I don't want it installed in the routing table. So that's what a distribute list does for OSPF, and that's a big difference compared to EIGRP and RIP. EIGRP and RIP behave the same way with distribute lists because they're distance vector routing protocols. But OSPF's link state has to have the same link state database amongst all the routers in the area. Therefore, you can only control what goes into the routing table, not what is shared between the neighbors in that area. So let's take a look at this in the live environment. Let's go over to R7 and take a peek at R7's routing table. Show IP route. When we look at R7's routing table, let's just pick this route right here. It says 172.16.32.128/26. Reachable via fast Ethernet 2/0. This is a intra-area route. It's a route inside of our area. And where is it? It's attached to R5 in area 567. I cannot tell R5 to not advertise this to R7, right? It's link state. I cannot do that. I cannot tell R7 not to accept this route and install it in the link state database. Can't do that either. But what I can do is tell R7, do not install this in the routing table, even though you know about it in the link state database. So we do that with distribute lists for OSPF. So let's go ahead and do that. On R7, go in the global configuration mode. We want to identify the route. We'll use an access list in this case. We'll just use access list 1. Access list 1. And we'll say deny. And the particular entry was what? 172.16.32.128. Give it all zeros. And then remember, we have to permit everything else, or else we'll deny everything from being installed in the routing table. Let's look at the access list. Do show access list. And there's our access list. Now let's apply it on R7. So router OSPF1. And we'll type in distribute list. We'll specify the access list. We'll say in. We say in because it's into the routing table. Into the routing table. Think about that. we are filtering routes that are going from the link state database into the routing table. So distribute list 1 in, and that's it. We don't have to apply anything else in this case. Not a whole lot of options with OSPF, simply because everybody has to have the link state database. Whereas with EIGRP, we could control it inbound or outbound of an interface, the routes, because it's what we're advertising to our neighbors because it's a distance vector or advanced distance vector routing protocol. So let's look now at the routing table on R7. Show IP route. And what was that route we were filtering? 172.16.32.128? 172.16.32s are right up here. And it's no longer in our routing table. It's no longer in the routing table. We still know about it, though. It's in the link state database for OSPF. Just is not in our routing table anymore. So let's recap and make sure we fully understand what we can use distribute lists for. Number one, we can use them to control redistribution. So we can set up that distribute list to identify which routes will be redistributed from one routing protocol into another routing protocol. We can use a distribute list with EIGRP to control which routes we advertise to neighbors or which routes we receive from neighbors. And lastly, with OSPF, we can also use a distribute list to control which routes are installed from the link state database into the routing table.